Hey, good to see you today. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm here as usual for this week's live cast. I'll be here for the next hour. It's 10 a.m. St. Louis time on December the 18th, 2024. And we have really a lot to discuss today. So one thing that I'm going to do today that is a little new is that I'm going to start off with a top 3 list. So last week I mentioned that there are a few game like top 10 list style lists that I have been not inspired to do a full top 10 video for. And so I thought I would give them a try by throwing a few of them onto these live casts. I definitely don't have enough to do one for every live cast, but every now and then I might do one. And I thought I'd start out with one to see how that format goes. So I'll start off with that, and then I'll shift over to your comments and questions. And of course, you are able to chime in with your favorites as I'm talking about this. So the brief top 3 list, this is about towers in games that have towers. And I didn't include any games where the tower doesn't actually serve a mechanical purpose. So for example, in Wingspan has a tower component. It's a delightful component. I'm glad it's in the game. Not everyone uses it, but because it is not required to be used in the game. It is simply a way to roll dice. The tower itself is not changing the faces of the dice other than roll as the dice roll through them. Unlike cube towers, for example, where the tower is integral to the mechanisms of the game. The cubes are either getting caught in the tower or they're coming out of the tower in a certain position. So that is the requirement that I used for this video. Ambassadors, so I asked Stonemaier ambassadors what their favorite games with towers were, and they said, so more than one ambassador said Amerigo, Dead Reckoning, El Grande, Marrakesh, Return to Dark Tower, Shogun, The Loop, and they mentioned Wingspan. I let them say that, but I don't consider Wingspan to be a game where the tower is necessary for you to actually play the game. So my top three, number 3, Return to Dark Tower. I've only played it once, but I thought the tower was really, really impressive. Like, it is a big tower that is controlled by an app in the middle of the table, and it lights up, it turns, it rotates, it has components that you like pull out from the tower to show that the tower has changed its position or what it can do for the table. It is just an impressive tower in the middle of the table. Return to Dark Tower at number 3. Number 2 is El Grande. I need to play the new version of El Grande. I have not played the new version. I've played the kind of the classic older version. I no longer have it in my collection, but I really did enjoy the randomness the tower added to the area control elements of El Grande. And at number 1, I have Dead Reckoning. I really appreciate the use of the tower in Dead Reckoning. It made combat a lot of fun because the tower, things get caught up in the tower, and the things that come out of the tower land on a bunch of different spaces at the base of the tower. I thought that was a really cool mechanism where the things that come out of the tower land matters for the results of the combat. And for better and for worse, a lot of them are good things that happen to even both players in combat. So you can lose a combat, but still have a lot of good things happen to you as a result of what comes out of that tower and where it lands. So those are my top 3. Let me know your top 3 games with towers where the tower serves some mechanical purpose. It doesn't have to be exactly as I described here. In fact, Jeff here mentioned the Spill and Wandering Towers. I haven't played Wandering Towers, but that is a game where the tower itself is really important to the game, even though something isn't coming out of the tower. Some other games that I haven't played that have towers or that didn't quite make my top list were Fireball Island, Edge of Darkness, Marrakesh, which I haven't played, Queen by Midnight, also haven't played that. Frostpunk, haven't played that. Terrascape, I'm really curious to play that. It's the one with a big tower dividing you and the bad guy in the game. And Harrow County, which I have played, I did enjoy, but I can't even really remember the function of the tower of the game, although it was a really interesting construct because the tower in Harrow County is built into the front of the box, which I thought was really cool. Anyway, let me shift over to your comments after doing that mini top 3 list. You can, of course, share your favorite towers, and I'll throw some up on the comments here. I see Melissa says Wandering Towers. Benny says Shogun, which I haven't played that. Chaz says, would the Camelot Pyramid count as a tower? I think so. Yeah, I think so. Although you could, yeah, I mean, it's important that the die that comes out of that pyramid is random. You could use a bag for it instead, but I would say it's close to it. Tony says Gizmos. You know, I forgot about the tower in Gizmos. That's true. There are a few games that use marble potion explosions, another one that kind of uses a tower. Return to Dark Tower and Castle Panic with the Wizard's Tower expansion specifically. And Mark mentions the pagoda in Four Gardens is used to show which resources you're getting. The number of each resource vary on each face. Forgot about that one. Yeah, that's a great example. So I'll go backwards and look at some of the comments here. Garrett asked, how is Scott? So our lawyer, one of our lawyers, our main lawyer at Stonemaier Games is Scott Duvall. And I still don't know much about what's happening with Scott. I've been informed that Scott is going through some serious health issues. And so just my thoughts have been with Scott a lot recently. He's a really wonderful guy. He's been wonderful for Stonemaier Games. And I don't know the details of it, but I know that he is expected to recover is what I've heard, but that it will take some time. So yeah, my thoughts are still with him. Thanks for thinking of that, Garrett. I do see a question right at the beginning. Your inner child says, is Veil of Eternity a missed Stonemaier game? I have really enjoyed my plays of Veil of Eternity. While playing them, I haven't thought, I wish this was a Stonemaier game, but that hasn't stopped me from enjoying it. Let me even see if Veil of Eternity is a 5-player game. Veil of Eternity. Because all of our games must play up to at least 5 players. Nope, only plays to 4, so definitely not a missed Stonemaier game. I think potentially it could play up to 5. You probably could have designed that, but you could say that about a lot of games that you could scale them up to 5, but it doesn't play up to 5, so it couldn't be a Stonemaier game. Derek says, does tower have to equal dispenser? And I don't think so. I think in general, that's how many towers work in games. I think, like Mark mentioned, the pagoda in Four Gardens, that's not a dispenser. The Wandering Towers, I don't think that, I haven't played that, but I don't think that acts as a dispenser. But it is still a core component to it. Also come back to towers in games. We get that. That's a topic for today. One of the other topics of today is mysteries in games. So this came up recently. I started to think about this recently because I'm watching some really good mysteries on TV right now. I'm watching a show at night called Elsbeth. It's on Paramount Plus here in the US. That's Elsbeth, E-L-S-B-E-T-H. Elsbeth, like Elizabeth, but Elsbeth. They made the name weird for reasons. But it's a really good mystery show. It's the type of mystery show where you, at the beginning of the episode, you see how the crime was committed. You see exactly how it was committed. And the whole show is about Elsbeth, the main character, figuring out, both figuring out how the crime was committed and figuring out how to prove it. And it's a really good show, really good mystery show. That's the mystery of the show. Like, you don't know how, how the crime was committed. You have to figure out how she's going to prove it. The other show that we're watching is a show called A Man on the Inside. It's a new Netflix show with, I forget his name, Ted somebody, famous actor who was in Cheers. He plays an elderly man who essentially infiltrates a nursing home to solve a mystery. And what I'm finding about these shows is, especially A Man on the Inside, I like the mini mysteries, the self-contained mysteries of Elsbeth, but I love the longer mystery of A Man on the Inside. It would be a good show without that mystery, a man going to a nursing home and hijinks ensue. That would be good. But having that mystery definitely makes me want to watch the next episode. It also makes me talk about the episode with Megan afterward. We talk about theories, who might be the thief and things like that. It creates conversation. And it made me think about mysteries in games. And yes, there are some games that are mystery games. Chronicles of Crime, Sherlock Holmes, Clue. They all have mysteries in their games. But I'm wondering if there are other games that could be elevated, like non-mystery games could be elevated by having a mystery added to them. And I guess even more games have this than I might be thinking. Like in Star Wars Rebellion, I'm thinking of that. There is a mystery in Star Wars Rebellion. Where is the Rebel base? That is the mystery that the Empire is trying to solve. This is also the case in Hidden Movement games. But I'm just wondering about this idea of how important mysteries are to many TV shows and movies. Especially TV shows where you're watching maybe one episode at a time. It creates conversation around it, theorizing who done it, basically. But how that doesn't seem to exist as much in tabletop games. And I'm wondering if it could exist more, or if I'm just not thinking about how much it already does exist. Let me know about that. Okay, so a lot of great comments here about trick taking. I'm sorry, about towers in games. Garrett has a comment about trick taking. He says, I have the expansion and fellowship trick taking on pre-order in the same order, and I'm looking forward to both. Enjoyed your video this morning on Fellowship. I actually released that a little prematurely. That was meant to be scheduled for Friday. So I took down that video and it should come up on Friday. But thank you for being on top of that, Garrett. I did really enjoy my first play of Fellowship with the Ring, the trick-taking game. Luke says, did you see that Exploding Kittens is publishing an official Survivor card game called The Tribe Has Spoken? No, that sounds amazing. That's really cool, Luke. I did not know about that. Tonight is the Survivor finale for season 47. I'm watching it on Friday, so I'm going to avoid spoilers for the next 2 days, but I'm really excited to see what happens in the finale of Survivor. Ted Danson, thank you, Board Game Eric. I appreciate that. Julie says, Carcassonne had a tower expansion years ago where the height of your tower determined the range of your attack. Oh, that's interesting. And also, Julie says that she enjoyed Man on the Inside. That's great. Yeah, my mom recommended it, and we're really enjoying it. Jason says, why did Stonemaier Games settle on the 1 to 5 player count requirement? 5 seems like a relatively rare player count, and it's interesting why that specific player count will be included as a publishing restriction. It's a great question, Jason. The main reason for it is really the target is 1 to 6. The goal there being that we could have games that play well for those who enjoy solo play, those who really enjoy playing at 2 players, but also those who want to share the game with higher player counts. I agree that 5 and 6 are rarer player counts. I would say, based on our demographic survey, about the same number of people who play games solo also like to have games that play up to 5 or 6 players. But I think it does increase the accessibility of a game in a meaningful way, because I'm sure you have all encountered this, where you have 5 players or 6 players and you want to play a game together, and you end up having to go typically towards a lighter filler game as a result. Not that that's bad, but sometimes you really want to play that meatier game, and you can't do that for many games at 5 or 6 players. And so that is the main reason why it became a core focus. And then once it became a core focus, we realized this is part of our brand. This is part of who we are at Stonemaier Games. When you were looking to play a 5 or 6 player game, you know that all of our games, except for Smitten is the one exception, or Wingspan Asia by itself. So there are some minor exceptions, but Wingspan Asia also makes Wingspan a 6 or 7 player game. But you know, for Stonemaier Game, that all of our games play for up to 5 players. So ideally, that connection is kind of reinforced game after game, that if you're looking for a game that plays up to those player counts, you can always look at a Stonemaier game and know that you're going to get at least 5 players, probably 6 players in many of our games. So it simply became part of our brand. It also becomes helpful because we have a lot of games submitted to us, and we can't accept them all, of course. We can't publish them all. And so we need some filters to help figure out which games are the right fit for us. And a game that plays well at 5 or 6 players is tough to find, and it's a great filter for that purpose. Jeff and Monica mentioned Kingdom Rush. I haven't played that one, but it's a good tower defense game. That's interesting to add the tower defense into this category. Zoctal mentions Gollum. It is used as a dispenser, but it works a bit differently. Another game might be Ryozen. I haven't played Ryozen, and I haven't played Gollum. I haven't played either of those. But I like the idea of dispensers fitting into the tower category. That definitely would expand it for me if you include games like Potion Explosion, Gizmos, things like that. Chad says that there's industry mystery in Star Wars Skeleton Crew. We haven't started watching that one yet, but we definitely will in the near future. And thank you for those of you who are mentioning that the guy's name, the actor's name, famous actor's name that I forgot is Ted Danson. He also played Michael on The Good Place, played Michael really well in The Good Place, another fantastic show. Talking about the idea of mysteries in games, Hidden Traitor, definitely a mystery mechanism. Jason mentioned Scythe, The Rise of Fenris. It does have a mini mystery added to it. That's true. Jordan says that there's always a mystery in drawing cards in games. I like that. It's not a mystery to talk about, though. I guess I'm talking about mysteries that inspire conversation in games. Ben mentions Blood on the Block Tower. Great mystery. And yeah, that is a game that is built around conversation. That's a great example. Oh, I don't think we realized this. So Melissa just mentioned Dexter Original Sin. We've been seeing this advertised. I haven't continued to watch Dexter since the original series, but Megan has. And I think maybe she didn't realize, because she probably would want to know that is new Dexter content. I don't think she knew that. So I'll let her know about that. Thank you for mentioning that, Melissa. Chad says, I think a deep mystery would only work in a campaign or legacy game. I did like the Fenris mystery in Rise of Fenris. That is probably true, that the mysteries work best in campaign games. I'm playing 2 campaign games right now. after not playing any for a while. We played, we're up to game 7, or up to game 8. We're about to play game 8 of the Star Realms campaign. Megan and I are playing that. And I just played the first game of the Tidal Blades 2 campaign game yesterday and had fun doing that. Really, really enjoying the Star Realms Legacy campaign. It's a 2-player Legacy campaign. It moves quickly. You see progression really, really quickly in the game due to an upgrade system that I'll talk about soon on a video. But yeah, really, really cool system. And I guess you could probably call the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game, it is in a way a campaign game where every game, there are 18 chapters and you can play all 18 chapters in a row if you want, or take breaks in between, or jump to a certain chapter. Yeah. Haley says, have you done a video about games that might play well during a road trip? I have, Haley. How can I search for that? Let me see how I search for that. I'll try to find the video, Haley, because I have a few games, if I search my channel, for travel that come up, but I can think of the video specifically. I think I'll search for the word car. No, it didn't come up with car. It might have to be travel. I'm searching my channel for travel right here. Travel friendly games from 4 years ago. That might be it. I think that's probably it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. Yeah. So 4 years ago, there's a video called My Top 10 Favorite Travel Friendly Games. And I do talk about how some of these games, one in particular, I think is great for the car. And that game is Legacy of Dragonholt. As long as you have one person who is able to read while a car is being driven. I know sometimes I have a hard time reading books in cars because I kind of get motion sickness when that happens. But I think Legacy of Dragonholt is a great car game because you don't need to really look at anything. It's mostly a game of reading from a storybook. Yeah, really, really great car game. That's a great question, as I'm sure some people are coming up on some road trips for the holidays. And what games can you play in the car? If anyone has any other answers to that question, feel free to share in the comments here. Let's see. Ray says that I heard about a new Amazon anthology series called Secret Level. I have. That's on my to watch list here. But Ray goes on to explain it here. Each episode is based on a game, mostly video games, with 2 of them being based on tabletop games, Warhammer and D&D. He says, if you could pick a board game for a future episode to be based on, what game would you pick? I think I would choose Gloomhaven or Scythe. Scythe would definitely be up there. I think Scythe, it would probably be Scythe. I mean, that's the deepest world that we have so far. I think Charterstone has a pretty enticing world. Pendulum has an interesting world that I'd love to learn more about. Libertalia has a good world. Wormspan has a world that I'd love to see more about in that world. But Scythe would probably be on the top of that list. Yeah. Let's see. Aaron has another recommendation for a show that has an overarching mystery. Life with Damian Lewis. Quite old now and only got 2 seasons, but deserves more attention. Yeah, I've never even heard of that one, so I appreciate you mentioning that one, Aaron. Another Aaron mentions Time Stories as having a great mystery, and that is a great point. I love the mystery in Time Stories, especially there's an overarching mystery to the original Time Stories series, but there is a mystery to each episode as well. That's a great example. I love that. Aaron also mentions Arkham LCG and Earthborn Rangers, providing some greater narrative mystery. Actually, speaking of games that have maybe a little bit of mystery or things to discover and unfold and learn about and theorize about, Vantage, the game that I've been working on for a long time. I mentioned Vantage Update in the subject of today. This is my open world cooperative game that I've been working on for a long time. It's a massive game, 1,300 cards, 7,000 different actions you can take in the game. 800 different unique first-person locations, so each with their own illustration in the game. We finally have completed the game and sent it to the printer, and the printer just today has approved the digital files. And so that means that we're going to move fully into pre-production now, which is when they start actually making components. That's actually kind of beyond pre-production. They are making components now, including they are making the pre-production copies of the game. We're having 2 pre-production copies made so that we can, that's our kind of our last chance to catch anything that we didn't catch during the other review processes that we've gone through so far. So it's a pretty big milestone in Vantage. There's still a lot to come. there's 4 months of production. There's the Chinese New Year. There's 2 months of freight shipping, and we had to actually make this PPC, the pre-production copy, and review it. But it's a big step that I'm really excited about. I'm finally feel like it's another milestone, a step closer towards getting the game in your hands so that you can start to explore and discover the world of Vantage. So I'm really excited about that. I see Garrett in the comments here. Garrett has been instrumental in over the last year in bringing Vantage to life. I really appreciate that, Garrett. Mark too. Mark has been helpful with the playtesting. Mark says, for mystery and games that trigger conversation, Detective Club, Mysterium. Yeah, I'm forgetting all these games that do actually have good mysteries that you're discussing. Blood on the Clock Tower are also titles that came to mind for Mark. Jeff has an interesting comment about player counting games. He says, when I've designed games, I always start with 3 to 5 players in mind and later create a solo 2 and 6 player variant. It's easier for me to build mechanisms knowing it works with the middle player counts. Jeff, I can definitely see that. For me, I expand that to 2 to 5 players, and that range has been really helpful for me. 2 players is helpful because I really want the game to excel at 2 players, and I want that to be a part of the core design. And 5 players, I think I love aiming for that because it means that I have to build in elements of the game that make sure that there isn't too much downtime between turns or that there's simultaneous play in the game. And in general, I think that just helps the overall speed of the game and the pace of the game and the flow of the game if you think about those higher player counts from the beginning. So I think it's great that you focus on 3 to 5. I happen to expand that to 2 because that is so important to our playtesting and our publishing process. Chad mentions hidden movement and how the hidden movement inspires conversation in terms of the mystery of a game. Fear of Dracula, Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard is my favorite there. But yeah. Luke mentioned Star Trek Discovery is a mystery show. Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I'll have to give that one a try. Those mysteries and shows definitely keep me watching from episode to episode, even when standalone episodes are really satisfying to watch. Brad also mentions Legacy of Dragonholt as a great game for when you're on a road trip. And you're right, the driver can be involved. They can't be reading from the storybook, but they can be listening to the storybook being read. Garrett says, have you watched From? I've heard it has very strong Lost vibes, and he's considering checking it out. I haven't heard of From, but the title has me intrigued. That's an intriguing word to use as the title of the show. Jeff says, for Secret Level, I wish they'd done fewer games with longer episodes. I was looking forward to the Mega Man one, but the credits were longer than the actual episode. That's interesting. Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. The credits are longer. Board Game Eric says, any game where you have multiple choices to choose, that the outcome to resolve an action has that mystery aspect, and that always involves talk at the table. I can see that. I can definitely see that. Carell is also here. Carell was hugely instrumental in bringing Vantage to life. Carell helped us, or Carell didn't just help us. Carell laid out the storybooks for Vantage and created the cards for Vantage, did the layout for the cards. Carell is a whiz with InDesign and was a huge help for speeding up that process. So thank you, Carell. Softo says, how much table space would I need to play the game? Not as much as you think. So but still some. So there is a small central board where you track a few things on that board, but it's not a big board. It's less than the size of the box. But you also need the box on the table because all the cards are stored in the box. There are a lot of cards. They're sorted by order, by number, and so they all are organized in the box. So the box and the board needs to be on the table. So that's the main central space. And then for you, you need to have enough space for a 3x3 card grid. And you need a little extra space off to the side for the location that you're on and some other cards that you can gain. But most of it starts out with that card grid that you need. So that varies based on player count. So if you're playing with a full 6 players, you need that central area plus a little bit of grid space for each player. Oh, and you do need a little bit of extra space for the storybooks. The storybooks have to stay on the table. So that does take up some space too, but they can stack in piles on the table if you have fewer players. And we designed the storybooks to make them, if you do have them stacked, the edge of it, the binding has the color of that storybook, so it's easy to find the right storybook at any given time. Chad says, will you be releasing a collector's edition of Vantage along with a retail version? No, there's just one version. It's just one version of Vantage, but there will be some add-ons. Like the metal coins, we've already announced what that add-on is, and there are 2 other add-ons that people will be able to add on if they want. They're definitely not necessary for the game, but they are optional. Ben says, what do you think is the main reason the game can't work at 5? Downtime, component cost? Both of those are actually pretty good reasons, Ben. You can add more. A game does cost more to make if you add more components for more players. But I think downtime is generally the reason that games can fail when they start to get to 5 or 6 player counts, that you add that much more downtime between turns or that much total playing time for the game. You can turn a game that usually takes 60 minutes into a game that takes 90 minutes or more. And so I think that's why I try to make design decisions in games that don't add that much downtime or that much playing time at those higher player counts. I try. I don't always succeed, but I definitely try for that. Jacob says, I'm not sure if deduction games count towards your mystery question. I think they do. Yeah, I kind of omitted. I mentioned Clue, which is a deduction game, but Jacob mentioned the Search for Planet X as well as Search for the Lost Species. I played the former, but not the latter. Yeah, you're right. Those are very much mystery games. I think the one reason they may not completely fit into this category, unless one of them is cooperative, I don't think the Search for Planet X is cooperative, is that they don't, since they're competitive, you can't talk about it. They don't necessarily inspire conversation about the mystery as you're playing, but they are still great mystery games. Aaron says, have you mentioned the core mechanisms included in Vantage yet, or are you waiting until closer to the pre-order to share? Great question, Aaron. Actually, later this week on Friday, I'm going to release the latest update for Vantage. At least that's the plan. And that update includes a full example of what a player's turn looks like. And so those are 90% of the mechanisms in the game are what you are doing on your turn to take an action. And so, yeah, you're going to see a full example of it. It's going to be an update that takes a couple parts. I'm going to start with this example so you get a feeling of what a turn looks like. And then in a future update, either the next one or the next one after that, I will go into detail about how those actions work. But I think the example shows it pretty well. So you'll see it on Friday, actually, exactly what a turn advantage looks like. Jeff and Monica also mentioned mystery games like Tiny Epic Crimes and Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, that's the one that I've really enjoyed. Mr. Bert5 says, you mentioned before that there is stock for Stonemaier. Kind of. We are an S Corp. And so it means that we have shareholders who own parts of the company. It isn't really stock in the way that maybe you think about stock, but they own a portion of the company. We're a US-based S Corp, so we're allowed to have US citizens, individual US citizens as shareholders in Stonemaier Games. Mr. Bert5 says, how did you decide to set up the business in this format? Is it standard for board game companies, or were you approached by investors with the idea? I think the origin of us becoming an S Corp was our accountant recommended it. And then somewhere along the line, someone did come to us and say, hey, I would love to buy shares in Stonemaier Games. Is that something that you would be willing to do? And we said, we talked about it. We being Alan and I, we were the owners at the time, and decided to start doing that. So at this point, we have around 25 shareholders, 25 shareholders. If anyone listening to this is ever interested in learning more about that, you're welcome to email me. I can say that shares, there are only 1,000 shares of Stonemaier Games, and so each share is pretty expensive at this point. So even owning one share is I think prohibitively expensive for most people. But that is actually, I'm talking about filters and kind of constraints. I think constraints can be a good thing, and it does mean that I think it is helpful that in the private shareholder discussions that we have, I think it would be tough if there were hundreds or even thousands of people in that discussion. But by having it be 25 people in that discussion, the discussions can be more fruitful and productive than if we had a lot of people. So I think the price of the shares actually provides a nice constraint for the discussions that come out of the smaller shareholder group. But I hope everyone who has ever bought a Stonemaier product or has watched one of these videos feels like a stakeholder, which is a separate thing, where you just have a personal stake in the success of Stonemaier Games, because we hopefully, by existing, we can serve you through our games and our other content. Yeah, so I think everyone can be a stakeholder in Stonemaier Games. It's a little bit tougher to be a shareholder. Chad mentioned Severance as a show that has a cool mystery. Totally agree with that. Yeah, Severance is a fantastic mystery, and I'm really looking forward to season 2 coming out soon. Oh, Zakal mentions Bad Sisters. Yeah, we need to mention that. And mentioned Smart 10 is a good game for road trips. I haven't played that, but I've seen Bad Sisters advertised. We'll have to maybe add that to our list. Oh, and Carell says that Bad Sisters is a remake of a Belgian show. That's cool. Dawson says, does Everdell count as a tower? I thought about it. Everdell was kind of on my list for games with towers. It does have a tower component, but I think you can play Everdell without the tower. The elevation isn't needed. It organizes some pieces, but it is essentially just an elevated board. So technically a tower, but not for maybe the definition I was talking about in today's video. Mark says, continuing last week's conversation, have you decided when you'll live stream next week? Most likely, I think I will live stream on December 27th next week, which I believe is a Friday. That's most likely. It is possible I'll do it on Tuesday, but probably Friday. I think that's what I'm leaning towards. Thank you for asking about that. I guess I should probably decide that. I was going to decide next week, but I think Tuesday is Christmas Eve, so I was thinking that maybe some people will already not have work or not, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing for the video. So I don't know. I guess I'll ask you all. Would you rather me do next week's video on December 24th or December 27th? And I'm thinking I'll probably do it in the afternoon, just to try something different for those of you who aren't able to join at the 10 a.m. time usually. So maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon next Tuesday or Friday. Let me know what you would prefer. Jeff and Monica asked, is there a chocolate of the day today? And there is. Megan was very sweet to buy some s'mores cookies from a local chocolatier. So I think I will have a s'mores cookie as my lunch dessert today and as my chocolate of the day. Today is also game night. So there are some fun treats that we might pull out at game night tonight. Chad mentions Treasure Island is having a great mystery, and it is also good for conversation because people are actively talking about the mystery in that game, trying to solve the mystery. Wendy says, so the original question, Wendy, I'm sorry, I should repeat the question, is I was talking about how I love TV shows that have ongoing mysteries, and I was wondering about games that have that sense of mystery that inspires conversation at the table, either on a single session or over multiple sessions. And Wendy mentions Cryptid is a great deduction mystery game with unique mechanisms. I'm also amazed at the complexity it took to design it. That's one that I think has a great mystery, maybe doesn't inspire great conversation until after the game, because during the game, you're kind of keeping your information close at hand and encrypted. All right, I see 2 votes for the 24th, 1 for the 27th so far. Miles says, have I played Wandering Towers? Not yet, but I need to play that for this tower game list that we're talking about. He says, we had a blast with it at Geekway. Maybe I'll add that to my Geekway mini list of playing Wandering Towers this year, Miles. Okay, some people are also saying that the 27th is more chill than the 24th. Michelle says the 24th to count down with people on the other side of the world. I see a mix so far. Maybe I could do a mini video on both. Maybe I'll do 30 minutes on the 24th, 30 minutes on the 27th. I'll keep looking at the votes to see what you all would prefer for next week's video. Some other things going on. Let's see. Played a lot of games in the last week. A lot of new to me games. I played Fromage for the first time. This Tzolk'in style rondelle board. It's like Tzolk'in, but with simultaneous play. I played Monkey Palace, a Lego themed game or game with Legos. That was surprisingly good for a Lego based game. I played the Lord of the Rings trick taking game. I've been playing a lot of Star Realms Legacy with Megan, and I played Tidal Blades 2, the first scenario, just yesterday. Other than Elsbeth and A Man on the Inside, the 2 shows that we're watching that have mysteries, we also watched the movie Carry On, which actually I thought had a great mystery in the movie itself. It's a little bit like Die Hard in an airport. We watched that movie recently. Really enjoyed it. Really intense movie. And we also watched a charming, slightly raunchy college comedy called Sweethearts that was surprisingly funny and surprisingly touching. I really enjoyed that one. Tonight is the Survivor finale, but I won't be watching tonight. I'll be watching on Friday. Really looking forward to that. And yeah, I think that's all that I'm watching right now. Still reading the new Brandon Sanderson novel, book 5 in the Stormlight archives. I will be saying that for the next probably 2 months because it is a massive book that will take me quite a bit of time to get through. But I'm really enjoying it so far. Oh, awesome, Jeff. Yeah, Jeff, I would gladly play Wandering Towers with you at Geekway Mini. That sounds amazing. I see. Steven says, will you not be watching Survivor live? No, I won't be watching Survivor live. I'm going to watch it with some friends on Friday. So I'll avoid spoilers for the next couple of days. I see Nicole and Mark say the 24th as their pick for next week. Ian mentions for a mystery, The Light in the Mist. I believe that's by, what is the name of the designer that designs these types of games? Mention the designer's names if you know, Ian, because I think this designer is pretty incredible in these types of games. Carmen mentions some mystery shows, Death and Other Details. Really love that. And Only Murders in the Building are both very good. Yeah, 2 shows that I absolutely loved, and it kind of maybe start to think about this idea of mysteries in games that do inspire this conversation. After every episode in Death and Other Details and Only Murders in the Building, Megan and I are talking about who done it or who what's the red herring? What is the show trying to make us think is the person who did it? But I love those sorts of conversations that emerge from shows with mysteries. Jeff and Monica says, I'm guessing there will be a bunch of mysteries in Vantage that will start interesting conversations. I hope so. The whole world, I mean, I've kind of kept the whole world a mystery so that people can discover it in different ways. And because when you start a game of Vantage, you crash land on one of 126 different locations. So everyone's starting perspective of the game will be different every time. And it's not a campaign game. So you'll reset at a different crash landing location the next time you play and see a different part of the world. So I'm hoping that it will inspire a lot of those types of conversations. While Vantage technically has spoilers, I really do want people to feel comfortable talking about their adventures that they go on. I think that will be a fun part of the experience if people feel comfortable doing that. Stormlight says, am I using the same microphone as last week? All sounds great so far. Happy holiday to everyone. I am, yeah, same exact mic. I didn't make any changes. What I realized is that I think it was something about the streaming specifically that was making the sound drop. I don't think it was the microphone. And I realized that because I film a lot of videos every week. Most of them are not live, but this one is. And all the other videos that I record, including on StreamYard, don't seem to have that same audio issue. So I think it's something about the live buffering. The one surprise to me, though, is that these videos are recorded locally as well. So it's a little odd that the version that ends up on YouTube still has the odd audio. So that's a bit of a mystery here for us as well. Hey, Steve mentioned the show Traitors as a good reality mystery. That one is good, especially since we get to know behind the scenes who the traitors are. And Jeff says, or Steve says, it would be fun if they have 2 different versions, one that has the traitors as a mystery to the viewer and the other with full information. I think that's really clever, Steve. And I would actually love if they did a season of the traitors, and maybe they already have, where the audience knows some of the traitors, but not all of them. And so there is that mystery of who is the last traitor. Keeping that a mystery, I think, would be really good for viewership. I'd love to see that at some point. Rita Orloff, thank you, Carmen, for mentioning this excellent designer of mystery style kind of puzzle box games. Rita is fantastic at them. Board Game Eric also mentioned Silo as a good mystery show. Definitely, yeah. We still are waiting for a few more episodes to pile up before we jump into that. Oh, and I'm sorry. Rita is who I was thinking of for The Light in the Mist, but I guess different designer. I'm thinking of somebody else here. Jack Fallows for The Light in the Mist. Thank you, Ian, for clarifying that. Rom likes the games Unsettled for mystery and deduction. I like that pick. And Aaron actually mentioned it right after Rom mentioned it. Unsettled by Orange Nebula as a great mystery game that isn't campaign-based. The whole unknown planet system creates a great space for mystery. Yeah. I can definitely see that. I've only played Unsettled once, but I had that experience playing it. Garrett says, I recently purchased a rather expensive peppermill, and it's one of my favorite purchases in a long time. Have you ever splurged on a fancy version of a somewhat basic product, and we're glad that you did? That's a great question, Garrett. And anyone is welcome to answer this. If I splurged on something, I definitely feel like I have every now and then. What is a thing that I splurge on? I mean, I was thinking about just this morning, I was thinking about how happy I am that I found these warm slippers that I wear. These slippers with like cotton on the inside. But this was not a splurge. It was like a $15 purchase. But I haven't worn shoes inside for years, something I carried over from living in Japan, but I've just worn socks around the house. And I realized how much more comfortable and warm I am when I have these warm slippers on. So not a splurge purchase. Recently, Megan bought a water heater, this device that heats water automatically up to a temperature that you want it to heat. And we had a cheaper one before, and we decided to get a nicer one. And the nicer one has been really nice so far, that we can set the temperatures. It heats up really, really fast. And it reminds us when it beeps a little bit when it's reached that temperature. And it can even keep that temperature. It can maintain that temperature if we want it to. So that's a neat purchase, splurge purchase. I feel like there was one other thing that I'll think about that question, Garrett. I love the question. I love that you're enjoying your peppermill. And if I think of the other thing that I am thinking of, I will let you know. Chad says, how early in the design of Vantage did you find the name Vantage? It's a perfect name for the mechanisms of the game. I think it was around 6 years ago. So we were kind of pushing the limits of the trademark with Vantage, but yeah, thought of it fairly early in the design. The backup, I think, was Wanderlust, was the other name that I liked a fair amount. We may have even applied for the trademark for that, but I think we've released it since then, because the game isn't called Wanderlust now. Ben says he's currently balancing a 2-player game. Beginner players and more experienced players are making the balance look very difficult. Newer players are making mistakes that make certain factions look overpowered. What would you do about this? Ben, one thing you can do, and obviously I don't know the details of your game, but one thing you can do that I have not tried this in my games, but I admire it when games do it, is if you have, say, for example, asymmetric player mats, have one side of the player mat be the asymmetric side, and the other side have it be the same for all players. So that way, for the first play, or the first few plays, you can have all players be on the same footing with that same exact player mat. Like kind of the basic version. Arc Nova does this, a recent example. And it also is a great way for ensuring that the game is fun, even when players don't have that asymmetry. So I think it's a good test for playtesting and a good way to maybe address some of the issues that you mentioned here. Let's see, I'm scrolling through here. I see more suggestions about good mystery shows. And I'm seeing more votes for the 27th here. So perhaps I will make the 27th. But let's just say it. We'll do it. Next week's live stream will be on the 27th, possibly at 10 a.m., but also possibly in the afternoon. I'll make sure to post the video, kind of the reservation for the video, the reserved version of it earlier in that day. My schedule, in fact, I do have some family in-laws in town on that day, so my schedule might be impacted by what we do that day. Megan's telling me that we have something. Oh, we do? Okay, so it will be in the afternoon because I have a brunch thing in the morning on the 27th. So let's do Livecast at, let's do it at, well, no, I do a lot of things. I do the Rolling Realms live plays, which happened this week. Rolling Realms live play, that's this week, 3 o'clock, today, tomorrow, Friday. I did that at 3 o'clock. Let's try 1 o'clock. I've never done a live stream at 1 o'clock. So let's do our weekly live stream next week, the 27th at 1 o'clock St. Louis time. That's Central Time in the US. I know that's not going to be ideal for everybody, but hopefully it will reach some people who aren't usually able to attend. Oh, I see some fun splurge purchases here that have paid off. Sean mentions good pillows. Sean, I can relate to that so much. I have a really hard time when I travel sleeping on different pillows that aren't my pillow that I've formed to be exactly what I want a pillow to be. Definitely relate to that. Luke says he bought a stainless steel French press, and he said, don't ask how much I paid, but it was a lot. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay, Ian clarifies, Jack was the artist of that game. Rita Orlov was the co-designer with Jack. Thank you. James says, if you spend any time in the kitchen, I definitely do. Splurging on utensils is always worth it. Spatulas, measuring spoons, whisks, etc. I have a great spatula that my mom gave to me that I really, really like. Hey, Steve mentions king size blankets for lounging was one of our better purchase our comfort purchases in a while, especially during colder months. I like that. We have a nice space heater and a blanket combo that we use when we cozy up for dinner and shows at night. I still feel like there's that I made a Splurge purchase recently. Let me try to find it. I will try to find it because I feel like there's something that I got that was absolutely worth it, and I'm glad I got it, and I can't think of what it is. Mark got a new board game. Is this Splurge purchase? I guess this is maybe the question here is quality of life. Oh, the board games fit into that too. They certainly make me happy that they exist and they're in my life. Yeah, what is a Splurge quality of life purchase? A related question, Board Game Eric asked about board game upgrades. Have you ever bought something that upgraded a game that made that game that made you happier to have that game in your collection or happier whenever you got it to the table? I've always had a hard time answering this one ever since I've become a publisher, Eric, because I have so many nice components that we make at Stonemaier Games that I can use for other games too, that I rarely have to buy them for another game. Like I have lots of metal coins and fancy resources and things like that. So I don't have a great answer for that one. Jeff and Monica says, do you and Megan like eggnog? I like eggnog. I don't think Megan likes eggnog very much. No, she's giving me the no. Megan doesn't like eggnog, but I do like eggnog. Edward says, in the recent ambassador survey, you asked for playtesters. I mostly game solo, so that really isn't an option for me. It is, though, Edward. We playtest quite a bit solo. I don't coordinate that, but Team Automa Factory does. Are you looking for people to read through rulebooks by chance? Yes and no. I'm always certainly looking for people to add to our list to read, to potentially read through rulebooks, but we have a pretty good core oversight team that reads through all of our rule books in multiple different stages of the process. So I'm not actively looking for that right now, but passively, I'm always happy to add more people to the list of potentially being rulebook proofreaders in the future. Okay, let me see if I can find this nice Splurge purchase, and then I'll come back. Okay. Oh no, I do have. Well, I guess that kind of counts. Okay, I'll mention two quick ones. One is I found a facial lotion that is way more expensive than any other like lotion that I've ever used before. So it's just, I get, my face gets dry in the winter, and I used to use a $10 lotion for that to keep my face not dry. And I heard about a better version of this, a better facial lotion called Kiehl's Facial Fuel. And I spent more on it, way more on it than I've ever spent on a facial lotion. And it has been worth every penny. I've been amazed by the difference between this. Let's see how much it costs right now. This is a $33 lotion, a little bottle that is $33. I have gotten way more utility and value from that $33 little bottle than I have from the $10 canister that I bought, that I've been buying for years. So that is absolutely worth the splurge. The other one I thought of was, yeah, I'm looking at this. I have my elbow gets kind of sore after I play disc golf. And actually, Megan and I had a fun little afternoon excursion playing disc golf yesterday that I posted about on Instagram. My elbow gets sore, and I found this elbow compression cooling sleeve. So it's something that I keep in the freezer, and then after I play disc golf, I put this cold sleeve on my arm, and it really helps me heal and feel better and not have the aches and pains that I have in my elbow that I used to have. That was not very expensive, but it's something that felt like a splurge, and I'm really glad I did it. So those are the two things that come to mind right now. Let's see. Haley says, do you have any advice for a new designer when stuck between the concept stage and the first rough prototype stage? Haley, I'm in that stage right now. I can understand how kind of you've gone for this fun stage where everything is possible. And then you have to actually start making the prototype, which is a little scary. And it takes it takes work to actually build that prototype. The thing that helps me is to do it in little steps. Like I have been working on the prototype for a new project that I'm working on for a couple of days now. I haven't tried to rush it to the table. I think sometimes you'll get the advice of like, try to get the prototype to the table as fast as possible. But I actually like kind of spacing it out in little baby steps, working on a few cards on one day, working on the board on another day, things like that, spreading it out in little steps. And it also, by doing that, I kind of go to bed every night with a question about the design, where maybe I'm stumbling through some element of the prototype, And I get to ask myself, oh, like, why doesn't this quite feel right? Even in this hypothetical stage of building the prototype before I've even played it. And it helps me process it day after day until maybe a week has passed and I have the full prototype ready to go and get to the table. So I would maybe try that. Like, do it in little steps. Don't say I need to complete the full prototype today. Say, okay, I need to try to design one card today or one player mat. And maybe that will help you. It certainly has helped me, at least with this current game that I'm working on. Aaron says, it's my understanding that selling 20,000 copies of a board game is considered a great success. Is that still the case in today's tabletop landscape? Yes. Yeah, I think 20,000 games is a great, that would be amazing for, I think, most publishers to see 20,000 games made. I think even 10,000 is a good success and 5,000 is a success. But yeah, 20,000 is still, I would say, a great success for a game. I think the next challenge after that is, after you sell that initial 20,000 copies, can you sell another 5,000 or 10,000 on an ongoing basis, on like an annual basis or quarterly basis? That is the, I think, the much more difficult thing to do in today's gaming landscape. Chad is finishing up book 3 of Mistborn, one of my favorite fantasy trilogies ever. He says, have you or anyone else read the last 4 books in the saga? I heard you don't need to. If you have, would you recommend them? Oh, I'm sorry that you've heard that, Chad, because I mean, I wouldn't say you need to, but I would say the next 4 books, the next essentially a trilogy, is awesome. Like, it's great. It's fantastic. Brandon Sanderson takes this world of Mistborn and he jumps forward like 200 to 300 years and shows how the world has evolved thanks to all the things that happened in the first trilogy. And I don't know, I guess you don't need to read any book, but I would say if you enjoyed the first Mistborn trilogy, I think it's a great thing to continue reading in the same Mistborn world. I really enjoyed the next 4 books, and I look forward to whatever comes after that. If he does another, I think he's planning to do one more trilogy in that timeline, that piece of the Cosmere. I will absolutely read that. Oh, I like this. Chad splurged on a good desk chair. If you have a desk job, a good chair is a must. I like that a lot. I have a somewhat unique desk chair. You can kind of see it behind me here. Here, I'll hold this up. It's one of these things that is very heavy, and it's supposed to be kind of good for your core, and definitely not as relaxing as a good desk chair, but it is a good chair for keeping your core active while you're working, I guess, if you want to do that. Julie says she splurged on heated seats in her car, and she's glad she has them. I absolutely get that, Julie. I would say the next level of splurge there, if you ever want to try this, is to get a heated steering wheel, especially if you're someone like me who has cold hands. I have a heated steering wheel in my car, and it is fantastic. Chad says, would your sit-stand desk be a splurge? Yeah, I would say it is. Yeah, it's a good quality of life purchase. I'm standing right now at my desk, and I can push a button, and the desk will go down to the seating position. I probably spend a little bit too much time sitting at my desk, but it is nice that I can make it go up and down. Monkey Butler Lab says, nice thermometers and probes for their kitchen from ThermoWorks. That's nice. Michelle splurged on the Lego Botanical Collection. That's nice too. Hope you're having fun with that. Peter says, I hope you're keeping well. I am. I think I am keeping well. Oh, Jordan also likes Kiehl's facial fuel. I think this is a product aimed towards men a little bit. I think women, this is a huge stereotype. I don't know if I should even say this, but I think women have a lot more choices when it comes to hydrating lotions for their faces. Men, I don't think have as many choices in that way. But Kiehl's, I think, is geared a little bit more towards men. And so if you're a man who has maybe struggled to find facial lotions that get the job done, just keep your face not super dry, I think Kiehl's facial fuel is fantastic and absolutely worth. It's a lot of money to spend on a little bottle of lotion, but it lasts a long time. It doesn't take that much to use, and it's the lotion that I found where I don't have to like apply it multiple times throughout the day. I can apply it once and I'm good. Mark says, I'm considering if I should trim my board game collection or purchase a 4th board game shelf. Well, that's a tough choice there, Mark. We'll see. Let me know what you end up deciding there. Steve's quality of life splurge purchase was an electric mop that doubles as a vacuum. That's fancy. The kids love it, love to use it, so we don't have to mop as much because they love to do it for us, since it's much more fun to use than a regular mop. Now that is neat. When you find something that makes a chore fun, that is really cool when you're able to find that sort of thing. Scootman mentions that Castles of Burgundy has that thing that I mentioned where there's a side of the player mats that's standard for all players. You can play with that when you're introducing players to the game, or even when you want everyone to not be asymmetric. And then there's the asymmetric for experienced players. Thank you for mentioning that one. Waddy Rant says, Perspectives Orange is a great mystery game from Space Cowboys. Perspectives. Yeah, I haven't played that one. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that one. Oh, and I guess Orange is the one version of it. That's cool. Wendy bought something called an ice cap for migraines. It was expensive and not necessarily a fun purchase, but it's definitely worth every penny. I'm sorry that you also suffer from migraines, Wendy. But that's great that ice cap has worked for you. I wonder, that sounds a little bit like the thing that I put on my elbow, but maybe for your head. Yeah. Cool. And Garrett says, Garrett agrees about Era 2 of the Mistborn series. And he says, Era 3 is coming. Really looking forward to the next time jump. That's awesome that he's working on it right now. Aaron also says that he has enjoyed all the Mistborn books. Yeah, so while you don't need to read any book, but I would, if you enjoy the first Mistborn trilogy, I would absolutely recommend the next Mistborn trilogy as well, or the 4 books there. Hungry Dragon Game says, as a new board game designer, I've been following for a year or so and just wish to thank, thank you for the nice comment. Wish to thank you for all the advice you've freely given out. You've helped inspire myself, so I could never thank you. That is so kind of you to say. I wasn't expecting that from your comment. And yeah, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. Stormlight says, I understand you typically release 3 new games each year. I would say it's kind of 1 to 3. 3 is at the max. I don't want to release more than 3 games a year. Ideally, I would say probably 1 or 2. Do you think your company is at its comfortable limit of what you release, or is there room to scale up, perhaps become a developer only? Development is a big part of my job. I am the lead developer here. Developer is someone who helps take someone else's design that works really well and have it work even better, even more fun, even more functional, even more balanced. That's a fun part of my job that I do. But yeah, I think there are enough games out there that I really want to put a lot of focus into every game. I want to put focus into the design and development side of it, but also the marketing and how big of a spotlight we shine on it. I think if we were releasing 6 games a year, they'd all kind of be lost in the shuffle. And so I really want to say that like this one game or these 2 games are really, really important to us. And these are the ones that we're releasing this year. Next year, I think will be a 3-year. But 3 is definitely the cap. 3 is the cap. I think it's happening that next year because we're releasing a game really early in the year. And then we have Vantage, and then we have another release planned for later in the year if everything works out. Let's see. Anthony says, have you designed mechanisms for games yet to be published and found out that recent new games have a very similar mechanism that reviewers love? Anthony was annoyed at first, but now it has given me more confidence. Yeah, I would actually say if a reviewer loves the mechanism, that's kind of exciting that if I've been working on something and they love it from someone else, that's encouraging for me. I can see it also be a little discouraging that you weren't first to market with that mechanism. But think of all the many mechanisms out there that are iterated on, and the iterations become more famous than the original game. Like Dominion is still very famous for being the first, I think, to have the deck building mechanism. But there are games that have done, I think, way better than Dominion since then. Not better. I don't say that better subjectively. I mean that in terms of like sales numbers and things like that. Dominion has also sold very well. And then there are games like Ark Nova uses an action system that was implemented by a Civilization game before that. But the Civilization game was kind of received kind of so-so, with people saying, oh, this is the best part of the game, this mechanism. And then Ark Nova took that mechanism and added other completely different things to it and became one of the best games of all time. So, yeah, I think while I understand the momentary discouraging feeling you can see when someone else releases something that you've been working on, I think there are definitely silver linings to that as well. Hilda loves her ball chair in the newsroom. We had sit-stand desk, and the ball chair was fantastic for those long deadline days, worth a splurge. That's great. Is that one of those like exercise ball type chairs, or is this something different? Sean says, have I read any lit RPG? Dungeon Crawler Carl is amazing if you haven't read it. I totally agree. Yeah, I'm currently on book 3 of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I've tried other lit RPG and haven't been able to get into it, but I really like Dungeon Crawler Carl. I think the way that Matt Dinneman writes those books is incredible. Let's see. We have a few more questions here before I sign off for the day. Tony says that he backed the Founders Edition of upgrade of River Valley Glassworks. It came with a wooden Founders token that had a code on it for a free tiny game released by the same company. Made me think about small packaged games. What is your favorite game? And that's a neat marketing tactic as well, Tony. Thanks for sharing that. What is your favorite game that would be considered tiny or small? I'm thinking sea salt and paper for me. I think my favorite game that I could literally put in my pocket and be happy walking around with would be Hierarchy. I really, really love Hierarchy from Button Shy Games. It's a little 2-player dueling game. Gary mentioned perspectives. It has that first-person element where everyone has a different perspective. Gary, you may have mentioned that to me in reference to Vantage. I will check it out. Maybe put it in my Geekway mini list. And I need to put Wandering Towers there too. Wandering Towers. Awesome. Julie mentioned ditto on the ice cap that came up from Wendy earlier. Hugo says, at what stage of a game's development should we start advertising, even if we haven't decided yet to go via Kickstarter? Thank you for all your help. Oh, thank you, Hugo, for saying that. I would say as soon as you decide, well, a couple different answers to that. I would say for any game, if you're working on a game and I think it's worth talking about, share what you're working on. That kind of establishes a form of copyright, and it can help you get feedback from other people. Other people might say, oh, that exact game already exists. And if you don't talk about it, then you wouldn't find out that otherwise. So that's part of my answer. Also, though, I think it's worth, even before you decide how you want to launch the game, I think it's worth openly talking about it and as long as you have some way for people to sign up to learn more when you have more to share, whether it's a newsletter, a Facebook page, a Instagram channel for your company, some way that they can follow the game and or your company. As long as you have that, which you can set up, in moments, I think it's worth starting to talk about it now. Yeah. Nito BG has a big question for the end of the live cast. What do you think of AI art in board games? I can say that I am not interested at all in AI art in board games. I have an article about that you can read on the Stonemaier Games YouTube or Stonemaier Games blog about how and why it is not interesting to me at all. Okay, Hilda clarifies that it's like a giant yoga ball and has a swivel base to hold it so it doesn't roll away. Oh, that's really clever. Okay, I like that. All right, I think we've reached the end of today's live cast. Thank you for joining me. As always, we covered a lot today. I didn't even get to quite all the topics that I was going to cover today. I have done some good play tests and some good game design recently. And there's one topic that I left out. But yeah, we covered pretty much everything. I hope you have a wonderful holiday week next week. And I'll see you next Friday for the next live cast, Friday the 27th at 1 o'clock St. Louis time. So 3 hours after the normal start of the live cast, and then 2 days in the future. I'll see you then. Take care. Bye.